Joe, yesterday it was reported that Alabama at the time tight ends coach Nick Sheridan was being promoted to replace Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator. Your thoughts?
So Alabama fans think that I am unbelievably negative when talking about them. I would like to just preface this by saying I supported the Kalen DeBoer hire. I am optimistic that this can work out. But I got to be completely honest. Them promoting Nick Sheridan as the offensive coordinator is really goddamn lame. It is really lame. This isn't a head coach. This is a coordinator where you have plenty of time. There's nobody entering the portal for you to interviewed outside candidates, to look internally at all of your options. This should have been something that took multiple weeks, not a couple of days. And you're going with a guy who was fired as Indiana's offensive coordinator in a 2-win season. Now, I understand that you can't totally fault some guys. There's been a history of coordinators who have been in bad situations, who have been let go and have gone on to be successful, like you said with Mike Denbrock. But why are we putting together Indiana South with this goddamn coaching staff? And why was there no effort to look elsewhere for other options? I mean, are we just supposed to look and be happy and say, oh, he's under Kalen DeBoer, he must be smart? I think that is a very risky decision. And as somebody who's a fan of a team that just promoted a tight ends coach to call the plays, I'm telling you right now, when you're screaming in week 7, remember that I said this. I watched Jared Parker completely run that goddamn offense into the ground, and everybody thought, well, the tight ends were one of the best units on the team. Let's just give this a second. Guy was also fired as the offensive coordinator when he was at West Virginia. Be very careful. Be very wary. This smells, it reeks of Jared Parker being the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I will tell you, though, that I have talked to a lot of coaches over the last 24 hours about Nick Sheridan, and a lot of them have the same opinion of him, that he might be one of the best X's and O's guys in the country. I think that there was a reason that he did not succeed at Indiana. Joe, we're talking about him being promoted during COVID. Tom Allen ran that program at the end of it into the ground. I don't think that it's fair for us to point at him there when all chaos ensued. But I do think it's something of that's very noteworthy, okay? That, look, the last time that he was a play caller, he failed at a place. Can I tell you why I'm not worried? It's exactly what you said the other day when Ryan Grubb left. I don't think that Nick Sheridan's going to call plays.
It's fair.
I think Kalen DeBoer is. And when you have a head coach that historically calls plays, what do they look in their offensive coordinator? Someone who's used the game and wants and calls some of the same things and sees the games the way that you do. And I do think that Nick Sheridan, mainly due to the fact because Kalen DeBoer has brought him on everywhere he's gone after Indiana, Joe, there's a reason why he promotes him from within, because he trusts him. And I just don't know if Kalen DeBoer doesn't have a lot of say-so and his hands in on play calling year one. I do think also Nick Sheridan has a completely different set of athletes, okay, at Alabama than he does in Indiana. It's a completely different type of scenario. Joe, let's not be crazy here. I know a lot of guys left Alabama, a lot of players left Alabama. Let's not act like they don't have talent now, okay? My only concern is what you said, though, is that Nick Sheridan, look, he didn't have a lot of success. But I do think that there's something to be said that I've talked to a lot of coaches that are guys that have been in college football for a while, and they really like him. They think he's one of the best X's and O's guys that's in the business.
Well, Jared Parker was respected enough to get a head coaching gig pretty quickly, even though he didn't have a great year as the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I think that a lot of times in the coaching industry, yes, there's a lot of respect that's given to these guys, but when there's not results in the field, that needs to be what's telling. sometimes we need this outside opinion and view on things to be able to observe and see how things performed when they were given the opportunity. If they had gone, say they had won 5 games instead of 2, maybe I'd be a little bit less uneasy about this, because then one could argue, okay, that's not totally on him. But to only win 2 games and for the offense to be completely anemic the year that he was the offensive coordinator, I don't know, man. I get that there's different athletes that you're working with in Alabama, but if guys can't get something out of nothing, then I start to get a little bit worried. But to your point, Kalen DeBoer is the one calling the plays. That's not really my issue.
I don't know if he is, but I do think he will ultimately be.
He better be. He better be the one calling the plays. This is what you signed up for. You signed up for an offensive wizard, and then to put all of the risk in the hands of a guy who
Auburn did last year.
Yeah. To put all the risk in the hands of somebody else who isn't that experienced or as successful. I mean, it's cowardly. It's very cowardly. Kalen DeBoer can't do that to himself, especially in year 1. They need to hit the ground running, and the way that they're going to do that is him calling plays.
Who does he go and get in February?
What do you mean as an offensive coordinator?
You said that this should have taken weeks. Who does he get? Because by the way, let me tell you this too. I get what you're saying and trying to give time to make a coordinator hire. I don't think they have the time.
Why? I mean, there's no
because if you go and hire somebody that's not familiar with Kalen DeBoer's offense, okay, and wants to come in and enact other things, Joe, if you said 2 weeks, they're going to be in spring football by then. It's an impossible task for a coordinator. The reason Chip Kelly works leaving UCLA for Ohio State as an example, you know who Ryan Day's offense, you know who?
Yeah, it's his.
He was running Chip Kelly's offense. So there's the terminology is the same. There's a lot of things the same. Doing this on February the 14th on Valentine's Day, I do think I'm not going to say that Kalen DeBoer was hamstrung a little bit. I do think he was a little hamstrung a bit. But of the 3 moves that were made, Scott Huff is the biggest move, is the biggest
loss.
Is the biggest loss on the offensive coordinator side of the football.
But see, I don't even think he was hamstrung though, because all of his other hires have been guys that he had close Indiana ties with. He was going to do this no matter what. Yeah.
Let's talk on that.
That's a joke. That's a joke. That Indiana that hasn't done shit except for have a mediocre year in 2020 is now somehow the coaching staff in Alabama.
He also brought a lot of the Indiana staff to Washington. They played for a national title.
He brought a handful of those guys. And Washington was
the guy that was on that Indiana staff. Ryan Grubb was the guy who was on the Indiana staff.
Washington is different than Alabama.
Ryan Grubb was on that Indiana staff. Womack
no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Grubb wasn't ever wasn't in Indiana.
No, he hired him. He hired him at Fresno. He was before Fresno at Eastern Michigan. He was offensive line coach, Fresno, and then he went to Washington.
Yeah, that's fair because DeBoer was the OC at Indiana in 19. Right.
A lot of guys would kill to be at Alabama. That's all I'm saying. That you could have pulled. I don't know who the list would be. Yeah, man, you could have gotten Tommy Rees to come back.
I understand your concern, okay, and agree with your concern. I do think that Nick Sheridan. There's a lot of people that like him, though, man.
I would have promoted Jamarcus Shepard before I would have promoted Sheridan. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I do think that Sheridan, potentially, being a former quarterback at Michigan, I think that, like Joe, what if Jalen Milroe completely develops himself next year and we see a completely different dude? You know who the winner and all? Can I tell you something that we hadn't touched about too? You know who the biggest winner in the Kalen DeBoer sweepstakes was? It was not Alabama. You know who it was?
Jalen
Milroe.
I don't think it's foregone conclusion he starts though.
I don't disagree with that. I think Austin Mack probably might start, but dude, I mean, he's going to get more QB development than he's ever had.
One optimistically would hope.
I do think that Kalen DeBoer, to some extent, looks at Jalen Milroe and says that he can work with this.
I mean, I don't know if it's a total scheme fit. Part of me does think that Mac gets his way onto the field early.
He might.
Year.
Very much could.
It could be like who was the kid
going to run a 2 QB system?
No, my thought was, you remember at Clemson, who was the kid that started before Trevor Lawrence, and then Trevor Lawrence just completely took over the job? Was it Kelly Bryant?
Kelly Bryant, yeah.
Okay.
Kelly Bryant led them to a playoff.
Yeah, but then he immediately, hence why it reminds me of it. Kelly Bryant got him to a playoff, and then immediately halfway through the season.
Lawrence, though.
I know he's not, but I'm more so comparing Bryant to Milroe, not Mac to Lawrence, in the sense that, like, he did all this great stuff the year prior, and then because of extenuating circumstances he can't control, he gets pushed out.
I understand your concern, and I don't disagree, Joe. I don't disagree. I just have a lot of respected people that I value their opinion on and say that they like him a lot. So I'm just going to wait and see. And I don't think – I just think that Kalen DeBoer is going to call a lot of plays here. So, therefore, I don't think it's a bad hire when you have a guy that's going to call plays. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's get to a quick break. Let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. I'm wearing the shirt again. I have two of these now.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.